So, Doctor Who Wish World. This episode sees the return of the Rani, which was highly anticipated for fans like me for years. And overall, they handled it pretty decently. The idea of her going back in time to kidnap this folklore baby that happens to be the god of wishes or something, so that she can fulfill this prophecy of being the Time Lady ruler of the world, trying to resurrect Omega from the underworld. Yeah, I respect some of these lore-building ideas that they throw out there, like the Doctor has the only functioning TARDIS anymore, and that Time Lords are barren, they cannot reproduce. So watching it, I actually was emotionally invested in the stakes of this imaginary child Poppy, the implication she's the last Time Lord that can exist. The Doctor absolutely would sacrifice himself for the fulfillment of something like this. And yeah, the scenes with Rani and the Conrad make me so uncomfortable. That means they wrote the bad guy pretty well. I was kind of predicting that the old white lady Rani would end up killing the other Rani. But yeah, they did a good job of not making it feel like the Master 2.0. Some of these set designs, production values absolutely blew my mind. Like the seal of Rassilon with the blacks, reds, whites. It's a clear upgrade from the look of what they were trying to go for with Deep Breath and Bells of St. John. And I just really appreciated this sort of Mulholland Drive-esque aesthetic that this episode carries, with things falling through the table. This costume for the Doctor looks absolutely incredible. And what he turns this costume into, I hated this outfit at first. But aside from when the bottom half doesn't look like too much of a big skirt, it's a pretty decent outfit, I guess. It's worth mentioning what doesn't work about this regeneration. The Doctor is like slipping out of the TARDIS, kind of balancing off of it, leaning forward from a gravity bubble. It's like the Doctor has regenerated inside the TARDIS plenty of times without the TARDIS being destroyed. I don't know, something about this just looks off. Not only that, the way these lines of regeneration energy are shooting out of him just makes absolutely no sense to me. I did love seeing Jodie Whittaker pop back up in Reality War. These two Doctors are so different from each other. Compared to seeing the first Doctor with the 12th Doctor in the special, those Doctors are so similar. The lack of stakes in this plot is very apparent in this Doctor Who episode compared to a lot of other ones. 13 and 15 playing off each other is great, but if you really look at it, the lines of dialogue between these two in this scene, they're kind of time-wasting, like wasting time of what we already know. That being said, that was still my highlight of the episode, seeing 13 and 15. I like the gimmick of things falling through the tables in this world, which is what makes them realize something's off. And yeah, Gatwa as an insurance worker with his umbrella is just a captivating character. In fact, the flashback of all the Doctors at the end of Wish World, some might say it was completely unnecessary, but it actually did bring a tear to my eye. Just the type of fan I am with the frequency in which I've been able to enjoy rewatching Doctor Who, a random little flashback like this really was a tearjerker. Yes, sometimes Doctor Who can take its cleverness too seriously. It's like we already know to expect that their explanation of timeline jumping is gonna be very hammy, so we just buy into it anyway. Which can be tiresome. That being said, I actually really respect the internal conflict and depth they were trying to go for with this episode. So that's Wish World. The 11th Doctor and his companion Clara are taken by UNIT to an art gallery to examine something from his past, where he is with Queen Elizabeth from the 1500s, who turns out to be a Zygon, because they fled their home planet in the first few years of the Time War. So that and the painting of the Time War brings up this internal conflict of what it means to the Doctor. Overall, I'm really fine with them centering the whole concept of the 50th anniversary around the idea of the Time War. It is one of the most interesting facets that has been interjected into Doctor Who. It gives it a whole nother dark depth that the show is trying to reach with the last few years of the 7th Doctor. It's the same reason the 8th Doctor refuses to wear robes, basically denouncing the Time Lord's unprecedented destruction.
I don't do robes.
The Time War is supposed to be this war to end all wars that spanned galaxies throughout the universe. It was between the Time Lords and the Daleks, but so many other races were involved in the crossfire. Billions of species and people died, and the Doctor had to blow up his home planet. Introducing this gave the Daleks that extra edge that they needed from Series 1 to 2013 at this point. I can't remember if they referenced the Time War again very much in the Capaldi years or the Whittaker years that much after this. But the way the 9th and 10th Doctor described the events, the Nightmare Child, the fall of Arcadia, just random, simple, immersive little details like this really make you feel invested. A few weeks before this came out with Night of the Doctor, we had established that there's an incarnation before the 9th Doctor, after the 8th Doctor, and it just feels so imaginative, that scene with John Hurt's Doctor in the barn with Billie Piper, who plays this destructive weapon that destroys Gallifrey the moment it gives itself a consciousness, and from the moment's perspective gives the Doctor the option as the lone traveler, and as probably the most important fighter, the most important asset in the Time War. I do wish overall the Day of the Doctor had more scenes where they showed a bit more of the grittiness of the Doctor's actions. During the Time War, all we see is him shooting no more into a wall. If this guy's supposed to be the War Doctor, then we should have seen more war-torn stuff. The banter between the 11th, 10th, and War Doctor is the iconic meat of this story. I don't care what anyone says, it feels fresh, it feels true to who the Doctor is in each of those incarnations. The conversation between forgetting about how many children there were on Gallifrey because he was too caught up in the Trenzalore of it all, and the War and 10th Doctor are not going to be able to remember that they tried to save Gallifrey. That scene where all the Doctors swoop in and save Gallifrey, that is one of my favorite things ever. And I absolutely love the way that in the Day of the Doctor novelization, they detailed how each of the Doctors in their individual TARDISes, they went around Gallifrey, like saving people from rooftops, extinguishing fires, saving people's houses from tornadoes. They went around the planet doing what they needed to do to save people in this war-torn Gallifrey. And so that's what really made that event of all the Doctor's TARDISes flying towards Gallifrey as it was being frozen into a stasis painting cube. That's really what makes it the Day of the Doctor, and it would have been difficult to do this visually, but this is such a beautiful, great idea, and yeah, it's really chilling and almost brings a tear to my eye when I think about the final few pages of the Day of the Doctor novelization. So yes, Day of the Doctor, I absolutely love those moments over the years when this feels like my favorite story. That just really reinvigorates my passion as a fan. As an anniversary special, it just demands your attention with these different dopamine hits through all these plot points. I don't care that much about the Zygon aspect, to be honest, but it's cool that they reference the awesome tear of the Zygons, which I probably would say is top 5, at least top 10 Fourth Doctor stories. Great suspense, great direction, great lines in that one. It's been extremely hard for me to decide which anniversary special I like better. The 3 Doctors or the 5 Doctors. Just which one is better? I think for a lot of years I would typically say the 3 Doctors as priority. But lately I'm kind of leaning towards saying I like the 5 Doctors a little bit better. Just because I feel like the humor in the 3 Doctors might fall a little bit flat over the years. The 5 Doctors feels like a D&D game, some grounded elements, some serious elements, great callbacks, great use of other Doctors, great use of 2, 3, 1, Susan, the Master. Just feel like the humor might age it a tiny bit. I know people complain it's too much like a fairy tale, but I just have nothing but respect for this story for being the last sort of filmic experience of Doctor Who. It's pretty much the last exciting best episode of Doctor Who. Like, you think of Time of the Doctor, Twice Upon a Time, they were kind of depressing, nice send-offs. But Day of the Doctor is pretty much the last great, best, exciting Doctor Who story, I think. Why didn't they include Jodie Whittaker in the scene where all 13 Doctors save Gallifrey? Doctor Who is so bigoted and misogynistic. Just kidding, they included 13 at the end of the Day of the Doctor novelization. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. I wonder what the Sontarans were doing during the Time War. They must have been like, we're not the main forefront of this war, so yeah, we should just, there's no victory in us being involved. Like with Beast Below, for example, the scene where the Doctor takes the glass of water and puts it on the floor, at first I was like, okay, maybe this might be a bit too much. But then seeing what that scene amounts to in the episode, like the Doctor's trying to test the vibrations of the engineering pretty much, it felt like it fit into the story, and overall I liked the Beast Below. I don't think it deserves to be as called as bad after last rewatching it. There's something about it has a good quality to it. The comparison to the space whale and the Doctor's internal conflict with the Time War, maybe to some people it might have felt played out by that point, but to me it felt perfectly fine. Having it make Amy realize that after all this time, 2 adventures spanning a lot of years, these are events that show her that the Doctor is really that old and really that kind and wouldn't want to see children cry. So it makes sense, and it worked for me. Hellbent is worse to Day of the Doctor for what Invasion of Time did to Gallifrey for Deadly Assassins. I like to say that I've been in my Ncuti Gatwa era in terms of how many scenes from Doctor Who make me cry on rewatch. I might as well make a top 10 saddest Doctor Who scenes list, and it's just a thumbnail of Ncuti Gatwa crying. Of course, Day of the Doctor wins this episode of Doctor Who Fights. Thank you guys so much for watching this season of Doctor Who Fights. See you in the next review. Later, guys.